And we're live. Another episode, another week. We basically restarted doing these videos because I think it's going to be a great way for us to just talk about what's happening in the scene, talking about how Toolhouse is evolving. And I'm here today joined once again by Superhuman and great human, but also here he's working on a lot of things with us at Toolhouse, community, demos. Uh, I don't know, just basically organizing this whole podcast. I'm not gonna lie. So we have a lot.
Appreciate the opportunity, man. Just
Yeah, of
yeah.
course. Yeah. So we have a lot of topics to go over today, but we're gonna start with the weird or the big announcement, which was that Meta announced on a Saturday
Yeah,
Llama 4. So, why did it happen on a Saturday? What happened there? Do you know?
I just saw the GitHub commit history. So it was set for seventh and then changed it to fifth. And there is another model coming and training. So yeah, it's a lot of weirdness there.
So it's interesting that they launched on a Saturday. I think they were probably trying to speed up in a way the release cycle because maybe they wanted to get earlier feedback. But Llama came out with three models. I think everybody has been covering it. Um, in the news. They're like, okay, there's the Scout model, there's the Maverick model, and then there's the huge Behemoth model, which hasn't been released. And we've tried it internally at Toolhouse, and we've tried it thanks to our partners Grok, which they were fast, very, very fast at putting it on their inference platform. So thanks to that, um, yeah, it was incredible. So did you try it?
No, I just been like studying up on it, see like what's so special about it, because Llamas has been like the biggest open source kind of announcements during this time. So Llama 2, Llama 3, they
Yeah.
were kind of like, hey, there was no DeepSeek back then, so it was like, hey, we're doing it open source, open ways, you can study it up, started whole out the open source game. But Llama 4 seems like a bit like too much news around it. Somebody gets fired, somebody now is doing some benchmarking, so it's been weird. So yeah, I want to hear more about you actually about that. So yeah, well, how do you see
Yeah.
Llama 4 compared to the other versions?
So I've tried it a little bit. I try to build a usual. I always build the same thing. I build a small AI agent for like customer support. What I usually build it with is in Python. I use the Open AI SDK, the Agents SDK, I should call it. And because Grok has Open AI support, meaning that you can basically use the Open AI SDK and then you can just change a couple of parameters into the SDK, and you can just drop the base URL from Grok. I was able to do it that way. Um, I think a lot of people have been giving it a lot of negative press. The reason for that being that it was maybe trained to perform really well in benchmarks. That's what people in the scene are saying. I honestly couldn't care less about benchmarks. I'm more about real life usage. In my tests, in my very small amount of tests, I didn't go super deep, but I did watch a lot of like videos of other people going deeper, and it's not that revolutionary. Maybe what's more interesting is that it's a mixture of experts, and I'm sure a lot of people out there are wondering what is mixture of experts. Well, mixture of experts is basically meaning that the whole model doesn't get activated at once when you need to answer to generate like a response. Depending on what you ask, it's just different parts of it, which is more efficient. And you have this like orchestrator, almost like part of the model which decides which part of the model gets activated.
Yeah,
So
I
if you
guess
were
it's
to
about like specific tasks. It's like a sort of like on and off thing that turns off and off for
correct.
the expert. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
So it's basically, if you think about it, like in a McDonald's or some kind of like fast food joint, the person who makes the burger or the fries, they don't do the whole thing. Like if you're at the fry, you're frying some fries, right? Like potatoes. that's your job. And so if someone asks a question like, hey, I want fries, you're not going to ask the person who's like restocking the drinks to come and like fry the fries, right? You're just going to have the person in charge of the fries do the fries. So this is a very simple metaphor to explain that it's kind of
Awesome.
like a more optimized version. Now, again, going back to the performance of the model, not really good on paper. Like it's pretty average. It doesn't seem like it's been wow compared to other models out there. But that is to be expected, in my opinion, because they haven't released the big chunky model. And so
Yeah,
once they release that, we might have better ideas of the actual power of the big model. And the problem is like it seems like a very large model, so it's going to probably be hard to host yourself. And so it's going to be interesting how it's going to evolve from there, and who's going to be able to host it, what kind of like machine do you need, etc., etc., etc. I'm definitely not going to be able to run it locally, so
of course.
bad for me. um, so
One
anyways,
one cool thing about Llama 4 is the context window, right? The 10 million context window. The people have been like crazy about that. Also, the smallest model has 1 million like context window. That's amazing because the smallest one has 1 million, which is equivalent to like Gemini 2.0 back in the days. So it's really interesting what they're doing. I can't wait to like see what people actually do with it. And yeah, you have any thoughts on Llama 4? Or you want to move on to the GitHub? I wanted to save GitHub for the next, I
yeah,
can't
yeah,
like
yeah.
miss that.
Yeah, I wanted to go through like some posts on Reddit. I'm
Let's
gonna
do that.
try
Yep.
to. I think we have a couple of posts here. I'm gonna share my screen and I will get onto it. So, whoops, I lost my window. Wouldn't be the first time. Here we go. That's usual. What happens when we record this live? All right, here we go. So let's start looking at some posts here. The first one is from a user who said, "I'm incredibly disappointed with Llama 4." So they were, doing the benchmark, using the Maverick model, and they also used the Scout model. And basically, what they're saying is that the tests that they were running were pretty bad. So let's see
Yeah.
how this video. So let's see what they were doing. They were trying to like basically build something here. And guess what? Didn't work out. Let's see what some of the. I mean, it obviously looks like something is not working, right? Like
Yeah.
the coins are like at the bottom. They're outside. It's not supposed to work like that. I don't know. This is the
Exactly.
20 bouncing balls test, which is kind of interesting. For those who don't know what the 20 bouncing ball test, let's see if there's a better explanation. Yeah, that's not it. Uh, there we go. So this is a way better video. It's very interesting. Using different models, they're trying to emulate some sort of physics environment where there are balls that are literally bouncing inside of a closed container. So you can see how writing the code for this leads to different results.
Oh damn,
This, I
that's
think
cool.
this is really, really cool to see that that is a test that some people came up with. I personally think this wasn't really the test that I went for. I went more for like reasoning capabilities and answering and, just being able to follow a specific prompt like, hey, you're a customer support agent, here's some knowledge, let's use some function calling, etc., etc. But here's anyway disappointment number one. Now let's look at this one. Second one we got here. Llama 4 will probably suck. This is a very
This is an interesting
interesting.
one.
Yeah. Have you read this one? What do you think of this one?
Honestly, I have no idea, but they're pretty disappointed, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
What are they talking about? The AI Godfather, Jan LeCun. LLMs are nearing the end, but better AI is coming. All right. What's this hot take here? Interesting. They're looking beyond language. That could indicate that they're at least partially blowing out of the current LLM, bowing out of the current LLM race. Interesting. Is that probably why they released Llama 4 and it's not performing? But if you think about it, Llama 4, you know, they had announced a couple of weeks ago that the Llama family model, it had been downloaded 1 billion times, which I
Oh
think
wow.
it's incredible. But anyways, I think we've discussed a lot about Llama. Let's move on to the next thing. So feel free to take it away.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Next one on the agenda is that the GitHub Copilot. So yeah, Microsoft had the big event, like the three CEOs gathered around together. I have a big question before that. I'm just like today I was wondering why AI agents are being so hot. First of all, we see LLMs. The first thing you would think is that okay, I'm gonna take these LLMs who are very familiar with everything out there on the internet. They're trained. Okay, they're not very specific domain, but we could take any agent out of this, right? If I want to make a YouTube video, I can get a corpus, build RAG on top of it, like, hey, this is my stuff over it, and use your LLM power to give me this stuff I want. Okay, so this is some sort of like what we consider as agents. Okay, we can add it tools, we can add it MCPs, whatever, but it's been there for like 2 years or 3 years. We've been building with these LLMs, but now they're really taking ahead and just going into like your code space, building more codes, giving it more access, right? So it comes to this, I'm not a cybersecurity student, so I'm really not familiar with those stuff. I just know how to fish people, how to mess around with my friends, right? But these stuff are happening underneath an API, or you're just using some sort of wrapper inside of another wrapper that gives you some abilities. What if these things mess up? Like GitHub, we saw on Microsoft having their own agents writing your code. This is huge, saves a lot of time. Even like the CEO showed like the all the machines of how it was operated, now how GitHub agent can help you rewrite stuff. So there comes two questions, right? First one, how good and how efficient they can be in your like daily routine of developments. The second one is that how safe are they? Are they really gonna mess up our files, get our tokens, somehow reverse engineer, backdoor something that reaches our privacies? Or I'm just like tripping over it? Your takes on it? So yeah.
I mean, everything that has built by AI it so far has been kind of like hard to productionize, meaning there's always that uncertainty that if you don't build evals, you don't build guardrails, it's going to try and do things that you might not be happy with. I think we've seen this with Cursor, we've seen this with like Windsurf, et cetera, et cetera. All these like IDEs for software engineers that are trying to basically speed up the cycle of software development, and you start prompting the IDE, in the chat bar you're like, hey, I want to create, I don't know, like a React component, etc., etc., or I want to improve a feature, or I want to add a new feature. And basically at one point, the more you go, the more likelihood that it's going to start rewriting parts of the code base that you might not want it to be rewritten. Um, Especially when you use this software, basically the agentic mode, which has full control of every file on your folder, that has more context, that follows certain guidelines, right? That you can load into Cursor, for example. And this is called agentic mode, right? Like inside of Cursor, it gets, it can get pretty wild. And so a lot of times the real answer is, well, if it gets wild, what do? Well, you just keep going. That's the whole point of vibe coding, right? You're like, oh,
Yeah.
that it didn't work, undo it. Or you can create checkpoints, where you can say, oh, up to here it's good, and then ignore everything else, restore, this version. Or you can do the brute forcing method, which is saying fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it,
That
give it
works. Yeah.
context, and just keep
Yeah.
going until. And the reality is that is not the way that you should use generative AI, right? Like vibe coding is just a cool application, but it's not going to give you production ready code, which you're going to be able to deploy with confidence. I think that's the word, with confidence. And so my hot take is you need to use the tools in the right way. And by tools I mean, the things as a human, not the function calling tools. I think you need to use the tools that you're given in the right way, in the otherwise you're going to mess all your code base up, especially if you go too deep. It's almost, if I give you a fork and you eat spaghetti, a fork is perfect for eating spaghetti. But if I give you a knife and a spoon, it's going to be very hard for you to eat spaghetti. So you need to get the right tools for the right job, and also be able to know that you got to twist the fork in the spaghetti, not just like
Yeah.
stab them,
Attack it.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you give me a knife and a spoon, I will go with the face.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Yeah, you can. Cool.
And yeah,
All right. So, yeah, any other questions about this?
last
I guess.
last things we got Amazon bringing back AI video model can generate minutes long clips. So we got that on the agenda. I don't know much about it. I just wanted to put it out there. It's happening, right? Videos, Amazon getting big. Multimodality is gonna be big, I guess, this year.
Yeah, some of my, let's call it, background was working with uh, companies that were building like 3D video in the past. Many years ago, I worked on basically like almost like an extension of a game engine that would allow people to create,
Oh wow.
customizable videos. So I know a lot about this space. What I don't know super much about, but I'm learning it as, with Runway ML and Sora and all these other companies, is that it's really hard to get a video that's more than a couple of seconds to basically match the prompt, or to match something that in your mind it's like, oh, I want to make a video of a cat that's driving a, I don't know, like a car. It's hard to do that for more than a couple of seconds, because when you go ahead and try to regenerate, the next 5 seconds, it doesn't usually look like the first cat. It's a little bit different. And so having this changes,
Yeah.
between the first 5 seconds and the next 5 seconds, makes it like look not super good in the eyes of someone watching the
Yeah.
the video. In the most recent times, there's been ways where you can like drag and drop some images, or drag and drop some maybe other video, and have the model extended, and basically learn from what you
Yeah.
feed into the model, to like keep the, what's the word, like, the same style, not just the style, but also the people inside, or the object. And so apparently the news here is that, with Amazon saying that they can now do minutes rather than seconds, I'd be actually interested in watching. Oh, some music here,
Yeah.
and there's all right, there's something covering half of the screen, but
You just give it a
that's
prompt
TechCrunch
apparently.
for you. So the video, here we go. You can generate videos. Looks very funky. 20 prompts, same. That's important. The cohesive output.
Yeah.
One prompt, and you can make multiple shots up to 2 minutes. You start, like I said, with this initial sketch, right? Like, you
Yeah.
can drag and drop some images, you can drag and drop some sketches, and then from there you can build up the whole video. This looks pretty cool. I wonder how much this costs. Doesn't really say. I guess it's part of Bedrock. And unfortunately, we don't really have any um, video tool inside of Toolhouse. So that would be pretty interesting to see.
That's a good call.
Um, yeah, some tool calling for video. So here it's interesting. An earlier version of this article implied that developers have to request special access from Amazon to use Nova. That's incorrect. You still have to request it, but you're automatically approved. So that means you can go out there today and try it out. So maybe that's something we can do.
Yep.
Maybe. All right. Cool. So, what's new in Toolhouse? What's new in the world of Toolhouse? Let's talk a little bit about that. Before I start talking about what's coming down the pipeline in Toolhouse, do you wanna show or share anything?
No, I'm done with it. I'm done. I just had the fun last one. I think for legal purposes we shouldn't look at it, right? The fine take. founder who was charged with AI fraud.
Oh yeah, there was another interesting news. Interesting news about. I mean, it's public domain. We didn't break the news,
Yeah,
but this is very
somebody
interesting to
got, yeah.
see. It's always interesting to see. Fintech founder charged with fraud after AI shopping app was actually humans. This is not the first time that it happens. There are always companies that raise money and then they fake it to show like a wow factor, while in reality, there is no actual innovation. It's just like a real fast person doing work. And so this news here is just like look making the AI world look bad, right? Especially the AI agentic world, which is already like hard to get an agent to work extremely well, which is why we're building Toolhouse, by the way. But this kind of news makes me just wonder like these people are the ones that give AI a bad rep. Them and the people that are using AI for doing horrible things like faking your voice against your will and sending them, clips of your voice to other people and make them, worry about you, but you never said those things, right? So
Yeah,
this is how, yeah, this is,
we
yeah,
got the DOJ, so yeah,
the
that's how you end
DOJ
up.
is on it.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
safe. All right. So now let's talk a little bit about Toolhouse. Um, so what we've been cooking in the last week at Toolhouse, we've been working on a new way to basically write your agents. We realized from watching the statistics on Toolhouse that it was becoming more and more cumbersome for some users to understand how to use our UI. And so what we decided to do is like going back to the drawing board and basically coming up with a new way that makes it simpler for people to understand once they've onboarded in Toolhouse how to build their first agent. And so today, as a preview, I'm going to show you what this new version looks like. And hopefully, you will agree with me that it's a way better version. So I'm going full screen here. I think. I think you can see my screen.
yep.
Yes. And I'm going to minimize us. So we go full screen. Here we go. And also, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. All right. So this is the new agents index. When you create an agent, you're going to be able to see your agents in a big table, unlike before, where it was in the sidebar and it wasn't really accessible. In this new view, you're also able to see your previous agent runs. This is my testing account, so I have a lot of agent runs that have been completed as I was testing it in the past. And so the difference between an agent and an agent run is that an agent is something that you build and you can run manually, and an agent run is basically an instance of that agent running. So if you schedule your agent to run every day, you can go under agent runs and see the output. Right now in this temporary UI, you can see the run details here. There's a modal that opens, and you can basically read the details about your agent, and you can scroll down and see more details about what happened with that agent run. When you go back to agent, you can edit this agent by going into the menu, editing, cloning it, or deleting it. And if you want to start a new agent, create a new one, this is the big revolutionary UI that we came up with. That's obviously a joke. It's just a more, I would say, guided type of interface. You can describe your prompt here. It's not a chat anymore. Now it's a almost, I would call it like a funnel. What should this agent do? I will say, please find the last tweet from, and then I'm going to use a variable username on X. You can see we still have support for username. And so Toolhouse AI goes in here, and I can select on the left the visibility of my agent. Of course, if I want to keep it private, I'll just switch it to private. And I can select from MCP servers that can be bundled up. And I'm just going to use default. And now I'm going to run it. Now, in a few seconds, instead of having a chat with my agent, I'm just going to see the output So there are no middle ground, middle things. This is like super beta, but we're thinking of releasing it sometime next week. And so here you can see the last tweet from Toolhouse. It's happening. Link to tweet, and then for some reason here it seems that there's a funny image. I don't know where this came from. Oh yeah, this is the actual tweet. Sorry, this is the. I wasn't sure. I don't. I didn't actually tweet this. So yeah, that's why I was confused for a second. Now, once you have your tweet, if you like it, if you like the output, you can approve it, which allows you to go to the next phase, which if I scroll a little bit more, now it's because I zoomed in, right? You can now schedule this if you like this agent, or you can deploy it. To deploy it, you can deploy it as an individual agent run, meaning one time, or you can schedule it to run, with a cadence here, and you can change this depending on whatever cron format you decided, as long as you pass it in there. So this is the new interface to create agents, and we're exciting it to make it more simple for people to create agents instead of making it more, I guess, confusing because you see it as a chat. Now you see it more as a funnel, if that makes sense. Another cool feature that we added is you can see which tools are being used by zooming in into the reasoning tab, which is collapsible, and so you can see which tools are being used, which we're going to improve and make it so that you can click on them and see the execution log in the next version. But that's a preview of the new Agent Studio. We're going to call this Agent Studio V2 or whatever, and it's going to be rolled out in the next couple of days to every single user on Toolhouse. And we're going to be asking people for feedback. So if you watch this video and you're excited, feel free to drop a comment or reach out on our Discord, and we will give you access, of course, like everybody else. But more importantly, we want to hear feedback from you, the users, the agent builders that are using Toolhouse to build incredible things in the world of scraping, productivity, etc., etc. So that's the demo. That's all I have for today. We're at 27 minutes, and let's get back on screen. Whoops, that's just me. Where you go? There you go.
Hey.
Come on. Any last kind words? Do you want to announce anything that we're doing on Discord or anything like that?
Oh, for Discord we have announcements, but just people have to look into that. So we have to decide first. Yeah.
All right. So, everybody, thanks for watching the Toolhouse weekly update. We've talked about Llama's big release. We've talked about Toolhouse, some other news, and there's more coming down the pipeline, of course. There's many more news, but we're not a news outlet. We're just trying to keep it chill. If you like this format, let us know. If you don't like it, if you think we should just focus on Toolhouse updates and community, maybe that's what we're going to do next time. We like to keep it interesting. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe if you're interested, or perhaps like it. Helps with distribution.
Yep.
All right, bye from Texas.
Bye from Padova.
All right, ciao ciao.
Ciao.